Now back to the show. This is The Law Show on CL 650.
Valentine knows it all. He's got something to say. It's Valentine's Day.
Well played, Dwayne. Valentine's Day is coming up, and it's a time of the year where you're looking into the eyes of your spouse and thinking, either I love you or let's call it quits.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a bit harsh, but it's true. It does happen. And this is the Law Show on family law. And we have David Halkett here, partner at McQuarrie Hunter. And before the break, we talked about, you had a client come in who had a fancy new Hummer, and he claimed he only made $18,000 a year. And you must get people who work in the trades, for example, and they do cash a lot, like maybe a carpenter or a drywaller, whatever they do. And they're not claiming that, which is a whole CRA issue. But there's also, you have to say to them, you've got to help support your children and your ex-wife, for example. So how do you square that? And we often hear maybe waitresses that make all their money on tips, right?
Well, you can always, what they call impute income to them. So it's obviously, I'm thinking from the part where my client says the other party's earning the extra money, because often when someone comes in and they're accused of earning more money, they're going to tell you, well, I only made like $200 in cash in the last year, right? So you try to impute income. You can go through their business expenses and say, look, clearly you're running your car through it. And if you run your car through your business and you're using it for personal reasons, it's really income to you, right? Or you can look, well, you can't afford that car on your income. Your payments are more than that. So clearly you're making more than you're claiming. And then you can go looking back again at the bank statements. How much money is flowing through. We all know that every business has some expenses. Tradesmen, they got their tools, they got everything.
But if they pay cash for everything, there's no records, right?
Exactly. Although usually people have an idea how much the tools are worth.
But you also, your spouse or the person that's claiming this would say, listen, he's always got a wad of money in his pocket and he pays everything cash. And
often at the end, so that they don't have to go through a full audit potentially, a settlement is reached because they know their other spouse knows.
So you have something over them.
Exactly.
All right. So that's one thing about ownership. All right. Let's get into, I mentioned it before the break about the fact that we have real estate is so expensive, and you have a breakup, and then you have a home to either sell or whatever you're going to do. How many people can actually say the mom and the kids are going to stay in the house, and then the dad moves out without the house being sold? I'm sure that's pretty uncommon because of the values, right?
Yeah, it used to be more common when I first started practicing, but it's very difficult now because even your rents are
astronomical,
$2,000, $2,500 for something similar. When I first started, mortgage payments were maybe $1,200 to $1,500 a month. I haven't seen two of my clients with that small a mortgage payment in a long time. They're now $3,000, $3,500, $4,000. And when there's everyone living in one house, that's manageable.
If you got two people working,
Yeah, but if you're in two different houses and your rent on the other one is $2,500 for even sometimes basement suites are $1,500 now. And so usually the house ends up being sold at the end of the day. Sometimes someone wants to buy the house out, if they can come up with the money. But in most cases, the house just gets sold.
And that's at the time the divorce closes. So you could have a situation in the last few years where you say the house is worth $1 million, and then it takes a year for the divorce to come to fruition, right?
Yep.
In that year, the house might have gone up another $100,000. So you've got to come up with another $50,000, right?
Yeah, and so in the last round of assessments that came out, some of them were going up $300,000. Dollars. So
I'm just using easy numbers for me because math is not my strong suit.
But if you are the one who's buying the home, you want to buy it ASAP.
Yeah.
If you're the one who's going to have their interest sold, you're willing to hold on as long as you can because it's going up. Especially if you're living in the house and the spouse who moved out is the one still paying the mortgage because he or she had the most income. At that point, you just wait in there and as long as you can till it's sold.
Let's get into that. How long does a typical divorce take?
Well, if you're talking just about the ending the legal marriage, which is the divorce, you have to be separated a year.
Okay, so a minimum of a year.
Yeah. But to resolve the assets, sometimes it can be far longer depending on how long it is to get your trial started. Usually family law trials can be heard within a year of when you start your action, but that assumes they're actually heard on the day and not adjourned. Typical is, time of separation to the time of resolution, 18 months, 24 months.
Now, do all of them have to go to court? Because you need it, but the official document that you're no longer married and divorced has to be done by a judge.
Yeah, only a judge can grant a divorce.
Right.
But if you resolve all the other matters by way of an agreement,
that's just paperwork then.
Exactly, you can do it without a court appearance.
So the judge just does it as paperwork.
Exactly.
Okay.
Make sure that the children there's adequate child support in place, because that has to be there before a divorce is granted. And if all the I's are dotted and the T's crossed, then the divorce can be granted. Basically, in Canada, if you don't have children, you have a divorce as a right after separation for a year.
Now, the type of home that you own, is there differences, whether it's a condo or a house or leasehold or not? Does that matter?
The lease, it depends if it's a lease that you rent it, then of course there's no asset. You're just renting the home. But if it's, some of the land like on the Musqueam land, you own the residual part of the lease, whatever the value is. Basically, it's just the equity in the home. So it doesn't matter if it's strata or if it's a freehold home that you own. It's whatever the equity is, and that's what gets divided.
And all of these other items are included in the settlement. So you've got money you've invested, RRSPs, insurance policies, pensions, any kind of businesses. Everything gets lumped in.
All property that exists as of the date of separation is potentially a family property subject to it being excluded property. So if I own 10 RSPs as of the day I separate, my wife owns 10, they all go into the pot subject to what we owned before we got together or via gift or inheritance, and you divide that property up for the most part. You can claim unequal divisions, but it's a difficult one in our property regime we have now.
So let's go through some of the exclusions. I guess inheritances are one.
What you brought into the relationship is excluded.
So be my CD collection, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's vitally important.
Yeah. Anything that you acquired via inheritance or gift. And the gift has to be from not from your spouse. So it has to be from a parent or sibling or something like that. Those are the two main exclusions that we have. Now, any growth on those exclusions. So if you were given $500,000 as an inheritance and you put it in an investment account and it doubled, the $500,000 growth is divided. That is property. It's not excluded.
So anything that grows inside the marriage after you're married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can trace your exclusion through. There are ways to lose it if it's in joint title. So whenever you have an exclusion, you're going in, you're best to seek legal advice before you actually sign over anything into joint title, because you may lose it.
For example, you have a family cabin or a condo at Whistler, and you inherit that, and then you put it into joint custody, joint ownership, then that could be gone, right?
You could lose your exclusion. So people have lost their exclusion without knowing that they can. That when the statute came in, we thought, okay, it doesn't matter if it's in joint names or whatever. You still have the exclusion. You can trace the exclusion through. But a case last year said, no, if it's in joint names, you lose it. Now, there's other law that's still fighting its way through the courts because our act is still only 4 years old, which will ultimately tell us what the decision is. But before you do anything, you're best to get legal advice. Now,
as a family lawyer doing this for 20 years, do we have an efficient system for family law? Do you think you don't want somebody from the bar or anybody listening to this, but what do you think? Is it a good system we have in BC?
I think it's the best system that we can come up with in a court system. I think when dealing with children, you're better to determine things outside of a court because only the parents really know the children, what's best for them. Someone comes to me and I can argue and advocate for them as to why the child should be with you more than with your
And you might have a child that's got some special needs,
exactly,
needs special care, right?
But ultimately, the parents know what's best for the children. And as I often tell them, it's like, if you can't come to an agreement, someone older than me will make a decision who will know you for 3 days at a trial. He'll never meet your child, and he'll make a decision that you have to live with. And it's usually that gets the parents to sit down and come up with a schedule they can work with.
Now, what do most people agree to before they go to court? Is it the children? Is it the money? What sort of level there? Or are they 80% there?
Usually, like I run maybe one full trial in Supreme Court a year. 95% of family matters settle completely outside of court. because of the cost. Unlike in other litigation, if I'm suing you for a car accident, I'm taking your money or insurance money, whereas if you and I are together and we're fighting over the asset, we're fighting over our own money. And it doesn't make economic sense. And I think by the time you're ready for a trial, whether it be 18 months or 24 months or whatever the amount is, you've gotten over the initial pain of the separation. Mm-hmm. And you're able to sit down and look at it rationally. Yeah, it's never an easy process, but it's better than going to court where what you say can never be taken back.
Yeah, it's on the record.
Exactly.
So we're wrapping up our show here just before Valentine's. So what's your advice to somebody who's listening right now who maybe is in the situation where they want to end a relationship, or maybe it's a parent listening on behalf of a child? What do you say?
If you're considering separation but you're not sure, find out your rights first. Go to McQuarrie.com, give me a call, go to our website, find me, give us a call, and come in and see what your rights are. Mm-hmm. What you may think you're entitled to or not entitled to may not be what it really is.
Are most people surprised by what they're entitled to?
A lot of people, especially the ones who have to pay, they think they may not have to pay a lot of spousal support. Then they find out how much they will have to pay, and some spouses think, I had an affair, I don't get any money, and I have to tell them, no, that doesn't have anything to do with what you're entitled to financially.
And how often do you see the woman is supporting the husband? Is that becoming more common?
Yeah, it's a bit more common. It's still maybe 25%, but it's more than the 2% it was when I first started practicing. So it's changing.
So the website is?
McQuarrie.com.
And where are you located?
In Central City in Surrey.
And very easy to get to.
It is.
It is central, basically, to the greater Vancouver area.
And we like to see ourselves as a regional law firm that will act for people all over the Lower Mainland.
Yeah, easy to get to, right on transit as well. And
exactly.
Parking is there as well. David Halkett, partner at McQuarrie Hunter in the Family Law Department. 3 lawyers there, and we have your associates in regularly as well, and we'll have them back, I'm sure. Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
And McQuarrie Hunter is, I mentioned, right there in Surrey. That's all the time we have for this episode of The Law Show. I'm Zach Spencer. Speak to you next time on CL 650.